all. And this is Sendil, your biology faculty. So I guess I got an information. Everybody is studying in 11th. You have joined 11th standard from 10 to 11. I guess so, right? All are in 11th?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
fine.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Very good, very good. So maybe possibly your school has started with classes, right? Your school has started with maybe the first term portions you would have done, and you have taken your examinations, and you will be up to the second term portions of 11th standard. And probably how you have taken the test and how you are preparing for your board exams. Can I know how many CBSE students here and state board students? Because state board, they don't have term one exams, right? Any state board students here?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
fine.
sir.
Yeah, fine. Okay, so you might have not taken the but term one exams what CBSE students are doing it. So probably they have split up the syllabus. Am I audible very clearly, and you're able to get my language right, or should I go with bilingual?
You're audible, sir.
Audible. That's great. Fine. To begin with this class, as you are stepping into NEET, you are taking up the coaching and you're preparing for a competitive exam, and you should be able to compete with all the others. And since you are starting with 11th standard, you're already in 11th standard. Let it be any board. You are in ICSE board, CBSE board, or in state board. Let it be any board. Your aim is like you have to crack the NEET. So when you are involved in studying how to study biology, how to crack NEET, so for CBSE students, they should feel bit comfortable as they are going with the NTA syllabus. So NTA syllabus, NTA is for what they have mentioned only for CBSE grade. It means CBSE textbook is the main source. CBSE textbook is main source for the competitive exam, that is for NEET. And maybe the other board syllabus, even if it is a state board or an ICSE board student or even an IGC student, as they prepare for NEET, the concept will not change. So whatever we study in biology, in all these different streams, the concept is same. Probably about the terms and conditions, certain terms will be given extra related to that particular concept to make you understand well. ரைட். இப்போ நீங்க பாத்தீங்கன்னா 10th படிச்சிருப்பீங்க இல்லைங்களா? 10th நீங்க வந்து பயாலஜி படிச்சிருப்பீங்க. I guess 10th standard the state board students as well as the CBSE students, 10th what you have studied will not be sufficient enough for us to crack a NEET. So 11th standard itself is too much of information are present. So 10th standard CBSE syllabus is nothing. 10th standard CBSE as for biology we concern, it is only 2 chapters or 3 chapters you would have studied, and little amount of information about the concepts. So 11 and 12, 11th standard particularly, 12th standard is also a bit easier. 12th you have certain general topics to be studied. So that can be, directly it is about environment, biodiversity and conservation. Then we do have organism and populations. All these are some general topics. Easily it can be understood and you have to sit and study those chapters. There are certain chapters where the concept is very much important. So once you understand the concept easily, you will be able to attend the questions, right? So for biology, if you talk about biology, most people what we think is, yes, it is easy, I can study biology. Of course we can sit and study biology, I can agree that. But once you understand a concept very well before you read, so easily it should be able to you easily will be able to get marks. But what are those concepts? When you sit and prepare, you have to memorize certain chapters and you have to understand and study. So how this CBSE has been, or how this NEET exams can be asked? In the last year question paper pathirkingla? Have you checked with the question paper last year's NEET? So this means this academic year they would have written a question paper, a NEET paper, right? Did you check the question? யாராவது பார்த்திருக்கீங்களா? I guess I'm audible.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So question paper check பண்ணிருக்கீங்களா?
No, sir.
No, okay. சரி, இப்போ நீங்க வந்து இப்போ பயாலஜி வந்து இதுக்கு முன்னாடி எப்படி படிச்சிருக்கீங்க? How you have learned prepared biology? அப்படியே டைரக்டா you will study from the textbook, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let me ask a question from 10th standard. எந்த அளவுக்கு நீங்க புரிஞ்சு வச்சிருக்கீங்கன்னு பார்க்கலாமா?
Okay, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So in 10th standard, particularly about human physiology படிச்சிருப்பீங்க இல்லையா? So in human physiology, digestive system is first system. So where food has been digested. Well, there are 3 pairs of salivary gland. Who can name that? Who can name the 3 pairs of salivary gland? Nobody? ரெண்டு போர்ட்லயும் இது இருக்கும், இந்த கான்செப்ட் இருக்கும் இல்லையா? Either it is a state or CBSE. Okay, well. Wait, okay, no issues. அது வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா it is parotid, sublingual and submaxillary. So இந்த மாதிரி சில informations what you have studied already, where you have to inculcate in your higher sections also. நீங்க ஏற்கனவே படிச்சிருக்கிற கான்செப்ட்ஸ் டைஜஸ்டிவ் சிஸ்டமோட ப்ராசஸ் வந்து சேஞ்ச் ஆகாது. ஸோ வாட் இஸ் டைஜஸ்டிவ் சிஸ்டம்? அது வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா ஃபுட் ஹஸ் பீன் broken down. So why this food has to be broken down, where it enters, where does it goes, and what is responsible for digesting this food particle, and what type of food you eat from outside the food which has been taken, what type of food it is that. So what happens to this food, what and where does it go after getting into some other place, what happens to this food again. So in the Marian next level, so already you know something in digestive system. You would have learned about food has been broken down. Yes, of course, food is broken down. And next step, what happens to after breakdown? What happens? So what is responsible for breaking down? So biology is always a subject where already what you learn, it will be about the extra things. So certain terms you would have studied in 10th standard. Now extra more than that you will be studying in 11th standard. And in 12th standard, when you comparatively in CBSE schools or in the state board, you can see volume 1 and volume 2 together we have 11 and 12. So it doesn't mean that 11th standard has been again certain topics has been followed in 12th standard. No, 11th and 12th together. So we have totally around 21 chapters in 11th standard, and then in 12th standard we have around 16 chapters. So in biology together 2 years you will be studying around 35 36 chapters, 37 you guess. So these chapters has to be studied. But in 10th standard, how many chapters you have studied? Any one of you? 10th standard, how many chapters you studied in bio? 3, 4? Okay, I guess no, at times you can respond me, because if my network is poor, I'll come to know that. Am I audible, children?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. See, this is actually whatever you studied is extra information is what is biology. So when you go into medicine, you'll have this basic concept what you learn in 11th standard and 12th standard. So extra information about that. So now I'll teach you about the digestive system and the respiratory system of human beings. That concept will not change. The same concept will be taught in your MBBS, but the extra inputs. So I say that it is about epithelial tissues. I say epithelial tissues. I'll give you one example here. Epithelial tissues of this particular shape. This type of epithelial tissue is present over here. So when you go into the next level in your MBBS level, you'll have the extra information to be studied. So about this epithelial tissues, in this particular organ, this epithelial tissue is called as this particular name. So always the differentiation. I want to differentiate among your class. Now class level, this one student is studying very good and one student is average and one student is below average. So how can I verify them? On what basis I'll verify them? I need to differentiate them. One is very good in football player, one is very good in cricket player. So it means that to differentiate among yourself, different names has been provided. Same thing in biology. If I say cell, living organism is made up of cell. All living organism is made up of cell. So overall, throughout your body, it has been made up of cell. But it is easy for us to name as cells only, right? Every cell is doing the same function. But I need to differentiate what is the role of lungs, the cells present in the lungs. What is the role of cells present in the liver? I want to differentiate all those. So different names has been provided. Different technical terms will be given. So that is what is biology. And there is no specific way. There is no specific way that, okay, biology, I can summarize all the formulas like mathematics, all the numericals I can calculate. No, you should understand. Only thing you should understand. The concept based teaching you should understand, and then and there you have to read your textbooks. Okay, so I'm not going to take much of the time in telling all those things. So talking about NEAT, it's very simple. People try to observe the class, everyday class, what I teach you, you observe, and then immediately after the class gets over, when you find time, you just go through that, and we may also practice questions. Once my one topic, one chapter has got over, I will be discussing the questions, number of questions related to that particular chapter. And you may also put upon your own questions. You may also frame your own questions. So if you have a doubt in particular question, sir, what is the answer for this particular question? There are two applicable answer. How can I go? This is the answer, right answer for this. So this discussion also can be made. So you may ask me about that, and we'll have a doubt clearing session also for that. Right? So don't worry that NEAT will be a very hectic study. No, biology, as for biology, listen to the concept. So few topics, as I told you, few topics, it will be very dry in sense you have to read only the names. For example, when I talk about a plant, morphology of a plant, three parts of a plant, three organs of a plant is root, stem, and leaf. So what I can, the teaching part of it will be for you was root. What is a root, where it is present, how does it grow, and the types of root. When I describe about the primary root and then secondary root and the tertiary root, or I say you it is adventitious root or fibrous root. So tap root, I'll differentiate these names. So these terms are playing a role. So when we go for the classification of plants, then we'll have 5 divisions of plant. So which division will have such type of root? So roots are mostly present from pteridophytes, bryophytes, and algae, that is thallophytes. It doesn't contain a root. So we have true roots from pteridophytes, gymnosperm, and angiosperms. Now, when I say taproot, so the taproot system is seen in angiosperm. We are differentiating among the dicot and monocot. So always every topic will be related to the next one. So your chapters has been framed in such a manner. So when you study about the plant kingdom, so certain informations what you study in plant kingdom will be applicable for morphology and anatomy of plants. So what is morphology and what is anatomy? External structures is morphology. Internal structure is anatomy. So in a plant, if you talk about external structure, it is root, stem, and leaves. So you will study about the modifications of root, modifications of stem, leaf types, classification of leaves, and then we have the modifications of leaf. Then flower structure, and flower, the male and female gametes formation, how it has been formed. So in 11th standard, in flower structure, you learn about the flower and how a female gametophyte has been formed. But in 12th standard, you will be studying about how the gametes has been formed. So there is a relation. Certain topics, always there is a relation. You cannot forget that, okay, one chapter is over, I'll read only this, I cannot relate with the next one. No, every chapter you have to relate it to the next chapter. In what way the question can be asked. So another example I can provide you was, if in human beings, if we are talking about the formation of RBCs, have you learned about the blood cells?
Yes, sir.
So blood cells is formed in which part of our body? The blood cells are formed. Which part of our body the blood cells are formed?
So bone marrow, sir.
Bone marrow.
Very good. Bone marrow. So bone marrow is the place where the process of blood cells will be formed, right? So in that we have RBCs, WBCs, and platelets. So RBCs are formed in bone marrow. So we say red blood cells. Can you give me the other name of red blood cells?
Red blood corpuscles.
Red blood corpuscles is same. Cells or corpuscles is same. The other name.
Erythrocytes.
Very good. Erythrocytes. So this process of formation of erythrocytes is called as erythropoiesis. So in the erythropoiesis, for erythropoiesis, there is an hormone which will be secreted, and that hormone will reach the bone marrow, stimulates these bone marrow cells for the secretion of RBCs. And what is that hormone? That hormone is not directly dealt with the blood cells. So in blood cells, you will not be studying about the name of the hormone. So that hormone is produced somewhere in some other organ, that is in kidney. So when you learn about the kidney, there you will come to know about an hormone which was secreted by kidney cells. So kidney cells, certain cells will act as an hormone, and that hormone will be moving around where towards the bone marrow and stimulates the bone cells for erythropoiesis process. That is formation of RBCs. So now where is this erythropoietin is the hormone name? Erythropoiesis takes place in bone marrow. So you have a link. So everywhere, every chapter, animal tissues, if you learn, it is applicable for all the systems in our body, from digestive to endocrine system. When you learn about the animal tissues, always outer layer has been covered by epithelial tissues. What type of epithelial tissue is being present? So according to your syllabus, it's not that complete information will be given. What is required for NEET, that syllabus will be framed. And if you're very well understanding about the concepts and remembering the terms, definitely you will crack NEET. So you know the competition is high. You have to put your hard work. Is it clear? So I may give you few information related to that. So I just want to start with an introduction. You have to listen the class very carefully. So it is almost, it's very difficult for us to listen, observe the class for more than half an hour. Yes, I understand. But my teaching method is always, if I teach for an half an hour, I'll give a relaxation of 5 minutes. So you may just fresh up your brain and then you come back for class again. So another half an hour you can sit and listen. So it's continuously 1.5 hour class. If I take, obviously your brain will not take everything. And please see that you are not distracted during the classes. You are in a separate room, no disturbances there for you. Listen what I teach. Because, this is a simple logic. How do you learn ABCD from your KG? And before learning ABCD, we learn around what is happening around the environment. You are not able to speak, but you're listening to the environment. Every time when you listen, when you see, everything has been fixed in your brain. Your memory cells will store all those informations. So even this teaching is same. When I'm teaching first time you're listening to me, it will be stored in your brain. Next time you'll be recalling. Your hippocampus and hypothalamus region will be responsible long-term memory. They'll start recalling what you have already done. Right? So listen, whatever first time you're observing, listen very carefully. So that is my on my point of view, certain suggestions I would have told you. And so with this, we can start a class. Not making you much bored talking about how this. Hopefully, everybody will not have a problem with the language, right? Any certain issues from the language, you can let me know.
No, sir.
So it's clear and audible.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now to begin with your NEET syllabus, 11th standard for this year, you will have around 21 chapters. So unit wise, it has been separated out. Can I share my screen? Just check out. Hope my screen is visible.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
See, if you don't understand any part of writing, please let me know. I'll repeat that. I'll spell it out, because always online writing will be a bit difficult on the screen. But try to, if you have any letter in between, you are not able to see the letter or it is confusing with the other letters, please let me know. And if you don't understand any part, if you have any question, even that you can put forward and we'll discuss about that too. Right? So in 11th standard, So we have number of units. The first unit, unit one, there are 4 chapters. The first chapter will be the living world. The first chapter is living world. This is a small introduction chapter here, the living world. And 2, biological classification. And 3, plant kingdom. And 4, animal kingdom. So let me talk about only the first unit, and then as I proceed, I'll go with the second unit. So we have 5 units here, 21 chapters, 5 units. Second unit contains 3 chapters. That is the morphology of flowering plants, anatomy of flowering plants, structural organization in animals. So 3 chapters in second unit. Third unit, 3 chapters, cell biology. We do have the cell unit, a structural unit of life, and then the cell cycle and division, biomolecules. So this biomolecules is something different where you have not come across in standard or 10th standard about this term biomolecules. But actually it is about, you would have learned in other form. So you know very well about what is a carbohydrate, what is a protein, what is a fat. So that is what that organic molecules only is called as a biomolecule. In chemistry, you would have learned it as an organic molecule or carbon and compounds. So that same thing what we learn within our body. So that we call it as a biomolecules. All molecules which are present within us, right? And then we have plant physiology, 5 chapters: transportation in plants, mineral nutrition, photosynthesis in higher plants, respiration, and plant growth and development. 5 chapters in plant physiology. And human physiology, 7 chapters: digestive system, respiratory system, circulatory, excretory system, all 4 physiological process, and control, neural control and coordination. That is about the brain. You will study about all the nervous system, and then muscular and skeletal system. So muscles and bones, and then we have the endocrine system about hormones. So all these are there for your standard, right? And moreover, this is the syllabus which has been framed by NTA, National Testing Agencies, right? So we'll begin. So with the first unit called living world.
Yes, sir.
Fine. See now, always it's a better way of understanding. Now the term itself, it gives us what is this living world. So if we say about living world, we know all the organisms. So number of varied forms of organisms are present. So how do we say that an organism is living? Organism, is my handwriting is clear? Can you understand?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So how do we say that an organism is living? There is a question mark. So what characteristic feature will define the term called living? So there are number of characteristic features. You know, if an organism is living, we are adapting. Normally, when we talk about a living organisms, first thing is like going for an adaptation. So, but that comes under the evolution part. We'll speak again about that too. So, talk about living. So, what is this living? What are the main characteristic features of this living? Any organism, and how we differentiate? Let it be an unicellular organism or multicellular organisms. That means one cell organism and many cell organisms. So how we say that these are all living, these organisms are living, and how do we differentiate that the non-living organisms? So whether non-living organisms has got the characteristic features what a living organism puts, right? So that is how we can define now the character called living. So here under living, if I say the characteristic features for living, so the number of characters of living, or the characters which are responsible for living, right? So the first one is growth. So growth is one of the character. Second one is reproduction. Growth, reproduction. Third one is metabolism. And fourth one, organization. So this I'm talking about the cell organization, cellular organization. Fifth one is consciousness. Consciousness. And so apart from this, the sixth one, if you talk about, so consciousness is okay, that is a stimuli, almost the that is a stimuli which will be responding. So five characteristic features, major five characteristic features which are responsible, or we say that a particular organism is living. It's because of these five characteristic features. But here there is an exception. How do we differentiate now? Now, first characteristic, if we think about the growth, how do we define a growth? So the first one, I'm talking about growth. So a living organism grows, right? Let it be a plant or an animal. So the living or even a single cell organism. Now, if you take a bacteria or amoeba, they are unicellular organisms. They're very small, microscopic. They have to be studied under microscope. But how do we define that growth is a characteristic features even in the single cell organisms? Or anyone can define what is growth? Any idea?
Sir, increase in body mass and population.
Very good. Increase in the body mass. So increase in the mass and even increase in the number. So when we say that if it is a multicellular organisms, one cell start to divide. We know this human body, this complete structure. So that has been come from where? From one cell. So one cell, the zygote start dividing, and they start divide to form number of cells. So the cell number is also increasing, and the cells start to grow because of the components which are present. They have their own synthesis from outside. They do get the sources, cell inclusions we call them. So we do have number of source, means food what we eat comes from outside, oxygen comes from outside, everything goes into the cell. So it increases in overall size. If you say it increase, and they'll start dividing. When one cell start divides, obviously you'll get two cells, and those two cells again will start growing and they'll form four cells. So this increase in mass and number is what we define as a growth. So how do we define a growth? It is increase in mass and number, right? Okay, increase in mass and number. Now, when you differentiate this with the non-living organisms, so non-living organisms, whether they grow in size and mass, means whether they grow in mass.
Yes, sir.
How come? Can you tell me that how it is possible?
Deposition of particles or due to external conditions.
Okay.
The growth is actually external there, sir. Here in living organism, it is from internal, sir.
Okay, growth from inside, intrinsic growth. So only when it is from inside, we can say that it is a defining property. If the growth is from external, if extrinsic factor is responsible for growth, then it cannot be considered as a characteristic for living. So growth is both external. Now, for example, you will be sitting on a chair, right, and the table. So table, or I can give another example, a plastic mug and a plastic bucket. So if you say about the number of particles present in the mug and the bucket will vary. So number of particles in bucket is more, so their mass will increase, right? So defining property, when we say, it is about only the intrinsic growth, not about the extrinsic growth. So this characteristic feature cannot be considered as a property for living, but still it comes under, because living organisms, they possess this character. But non-living organisms also, when we talk about non-living, they also have this particular character. So it cannot be defined. Similarly, the second characteristic feature is reproduction. Now, all organisms, they reproduce. So now when I'm talking about unicellular organisms, so example here, we have amoeba, bacteria. Unicellular organisms, we have amoeba, bacteria, and so the very familiar examples. Let it be any bacteria, amoeba, and yeast. So whether these organisms are reproducing or not. All these
Yes.
organisms are reproducing. Yes,
Yes,
fine.
sir.
And likewise, multicellular organisms are also reproducing. So reproduction in multicellular organism is bit different. Now, when you talk about an angiosperm and even in the reproduction in animals, the gamete formation will be seen and this gamete fusion will be taking place. And then the resultant cell will be of a zygote. Zygote develops into an embryo. Embryo will develop into an adult, means to one particular organism. So whatever example we provide there. But this reproduction is also not considered as a defining feature. So why reproduction is not considered as defining feature? It is because, so there are organisms which are not able to reproduce. Let us talk about human beings. So there are couples who are not able to give birth to young ones. So those couples, what we say that they are sterile humans. So sterile is the term which indicates that either the gamete formation itself is not there, or the motility of the sperm has not been seen, or the egg ovum production is not seen in the case of female. So any factor is responsible there. So sterile in sense either male or female, they are not able to produce their gametes. So those couples, they cannot reproduce. So in such case, how do we say that there is a particular characteristic feature? And second thing, there is a process called parthenogenesis. Have you heard about this? What is this term called? Parthenogenesis. What is this term called? Any idea? No, nobody? Okay. So this parthenogenesis is, we speak about without fertilization. I'm audible, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So without fertilization, organism formed. You would have you would have come across the word called cloning. Maybe you have watched number of movies. The cloning you would have come across, right?
Yes, sir.
Similar. So an organism has been formed without fertilization. For this, the best example is the worker bees, male bees, drones we call them, right? So they do
Yes,
not
sir.
reproduce. So I may tell you in the next higher section also. So normally bees, female bee has got 32 chromosomes. Female bee has got 32 chromosomes, whereas male has got 16 chromosomes. And now this 32 has been during the cell division, during the meiotic division, they are divided into 16 and 16. Now this 16 will fuse with, one of the 16 will fuse with the male gamete to form a zygote. And this zygote will develop always into a female. So this zygote will develop into an bee, that is worker bee. Right? And whereas this directly will undergo mitosis. Here the division is mitosis. The 16 chromosome undergo mitosis to form a male. So there is no fusion here. Mitosis in sense this 16. Here there is a fusion. This is reproduction. I don't compare with this part now. This is reproduction. And here there is no fusion of gametes. So male honeybees are formed by the mitotic division. So chromosomes undergo, the cells undergo mitotic division to form a new organism. Right? And those bees which are not able to reproduce, worker bee, why I'm talking about worker bee, they are not meant for reproduction. They'll always keep working. Only those bees which are combining with male, that is what female bees we call them. So they are reproducing. This worker bee will not reproduce. That is one of the examples. And you would have come across it, another example called mule. This mule. So this is an organism which is sterile. Mule is sterile. They are not able to reproduce. Mule is formed from an horse and donkey. So donkey crossbreeding. A donkey and an horse has been crossbred to form an organism called mule. And this mule is sterile. They are not able to reproduce. So reproduction is also not a defining characteristic for living. Can you understand? Yes, children?
Yes, sir.
Able
Yes,
to
sir.
understand what I'm... Okay. So two characteristics, that's why first two characteristic, what I told you about that is not a defining character, but reproduction will be taking place. In all living organisms, reproduction is taking place. So there are two types of reproduction. You would have studied about that, asexual and sexual reproduction. So asexual reproduction, number of organisms, they are reproducing by asexual reproduction. So it is about the fission, binary fission and multiple fission. Then we have budding, fragmentation, spore formation. 12th standard, you learn about all these with examples you will learn in 12th standard syllabus, because we have the chapter called reproduction in organisms. You will study about reproduction of plants and animals in detail. So all these are asexual reproduction, 2 types of reproduction. All these are asexual reproductions. So even regeneration also you can take out. Regeneration, micropropagation. All this comes under asexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction is fusion of gametes. When asexual, there is this fusion of gametes will not happen. There is no formation of gametes and formation of fusion of gametes. But in sexual reproduction, fusion of gametes takes place. So what these gametes are, how these gametes are formed? They are formed by the type of division called meiosis. So again, there is a separate chapter for that, separate unit, cells biology. You'll learn about mitosis and meiosis. Clear? So second characteristic feature is also not considered as a defining feature for living. And third one, metabolism. Third characteristic, the metabolism. So what is this metabolism? This indicates all the chemical. Am I too fast in teaching?
No, sir.
No, it's right. The phase is correct, right? Anybody else who feel that I'm fast, you can let me know.
No, sir.
Okay, done. So metabolism, what is this metabolism is? The total number of chemical reactions which are occurring in our body. So chemical reactions in a body, that is called as metabolism. So this metabolism is common for all the organisms. Let it be unicellular or multicellular, both the organisms, they have metabolisms. But non-living organisms, they show metabolism? No. There is no metabolism takes place in non-living, right? It is only in the living organisms. So what is this metabolism? What is this chemical reactions? So do we read the number of chemical reactions happens which takes place inside our body? No, we are not talking about the chemical reactions. Anywhere throughout your biology chapters, you will not be writing the chemical reactions, what takes place in chemistry. For example, if you talk about an organic chemistry, you'll have number of reactions which are there. But we don't write the reactions, but you should be able to understand. Yes, you know what is a chemical reaction happens outside in the laboratory. So C plus O2 combines to give you a CO2. So C is an element, O2 is also as an element, they'll combine to form a compound. This basic information, when you know, the same type of reactions are happening within our body. Let it be among the single atoms, or means the elemental form, or among the compounds. Right? Now, if I say glucose, glucose is an compound. It is a molecule, one molecule of glucose. It's a compound, C6H12O6. And now this glucose has been reacting with oxygen. That is what is respiration in our body. When they react with oxygen, this glucose has been broken down. We'll have series steps of number of steps of intermediate products which are formed. So this glucose, as it has been broken, as is combined with oxygen, so oxidation reaction takes place. But nowhere we are writing that reactions there. We are not writing the chemical formula for glucose combining with oxygen, which bond has been broken, what hybridization is taken, if it is sp2 hybridization or sp3 hybridization. So these chemistry part you have to apply in biology. It doesn't mean that you have to sit and read the chemical reactions. Is it clear? So we'll go only with mentioning the names. Yes, if I say glucose is broken down, so glucose is oxidized into carbon dioxide and water molecule. When I use that term, it is understandable glucose has been broken down. But within our body, this chemical reaction takes place with the help of enzymes. It is not an easy process. A number of enzymes are present. Each enzymes are responsible for the breakdown. So if I say the first step, glucose is broken down into glucose 6-phosphate. So there the enzyme called hexokinase. Hexokinase will be playing a role. So likewise, every enzyme is initiating. That's why they are called as biocatalysts. So for each metabolic reaction, enzymes are involved. Because enzymes will initiate, the reaction rate will be faster with the help of enzymes. And the energy used will be less. Without an enzyme, reaction takes place, but it will be slower and more amount of energy has been used. So always with the help of enzymes, the reaction takes place. So what is this metabolism? It is about all the chemical reactions which happens. Is it clear?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes. So chemical reactions can also be done outside the body. Does that it can happen only inside the body? So even outside the body, chemical reaction, isolated reactions can be done outside. So that is what in biology now we say that about in vitro and in vivo. So in vivo is within our body. In vitro we could talk about the outside within the laboratory. So we are involved manually. We are involved in making these chemical reactions. Right. So this metabolism has been classified. It has been divided into two. Metabolism is divided into anabolism and catabolism. So when I put the arrow mark here, it can be divided into anabolism and catabolism. So these two terms indicates that anabolism is synthesis. So synthesis of a particular product, and catabolism is breakdown. So breakdown of a particular compound. So together only we call it as metabolism. So what type of metabolic reactions takes place? If I say protein synthesis, a protein has been synthesized within a body. What is the source? What is the chemical which is required for a protein synthesis? So we say it is about the DNA. DNA is the basic information for a protein. And that DNA, whatever information has contains, will code for an amino acid. So amino acids will be the building blocks of protein. So amino acid has got a chemical formula. And this amino acids, number of amino acids combines to form a protein. Right? So protein synthesis is an example for anabolism or ATP production. ATP, adenosine triphosphate. ATP is the energy currency of the cell. So energy has been produced, synthesized. For catabolism, if you say glucose has been broken down, protein has been broken down. So breakdown process is catabolism. Hopefully you are your understanding about what I do.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Wow, good. Great to hear. So cellular, next point is cellular organization. So what is a cellular organization is? It's simple that basically all living organisms, they are made up of cells. So organism made up of cell. They are made up of cell. So that's why we call cell as the basic unit of life. So where is this metabolic reaction takes place? Within the cell. So without a cell, there is no metabolic reactions. Yes, of course, as I told you, outside it can be done, but still within the body, when we say cell is the medium. So cellular organization, let it be a single cell or multi-cell. So this cell organization, we are differentiating it as what? Unicellular and multicellular. So even it is one cell or many cell, the metabolism takes place within the cell. So unicellular organisms also can be able to live. They are independent. Bacteria is independent living. They are not depending on others. Of course, for food they depend. We say the mode of nutrition. Either they can prepare their own food, or they depend on the dead and decayed organisms, or they live inside on host. So within the host, they are living as a parasite. So that is mode of nutrition. But they are capable of independent existence. So throughout the year, they'll perform number of functions. So it doesn't mean that we human beings are complicated. We have this multicellular, complicated structure, but bacteria is a single cell. So we are superior. We cannot talk about that. Because even though we are made up of many cells, the same function is what is happening in the unicellular organism also. Right? So cell is called the structural and functional unit of life. So that is what we talk about cellular organization. And finally, to the characteristic called consciousness. So this is one of the defining character of living. So anything what we respond, this is nothing but response to a stimuli. Response to stimuli. How do we respond? We'll study this in detail in our system. How do we respond? How do we sense the environment? What changes is happening in the environment? So we are conscious enough. So living organisms, we sense these physical, either chemical or physical, or the biological changes, or the biological stimuli. We call it as the biological stimuli. So our sense organs will be involved in it. I see an image, that image has been framed in my brain. I hear something, I hear a huge noise of a loudspeaker, or
I hear a huge noise of something which has been happened, a bomb has been blast. So that sound has been recorded. So through our sense organs, we respond to the external receptor for light, or phonoreceptors for hearing, thermoreceptors for the skin, the touch, or the hot and cold what we feel, gustatory receptors for taste, and olfactory receptors for smell. Now all these receptors are responsible for detecting the external stimuli, and this external stimuli is converted into an impulse within the body, and this impulse will be transmitted through the neurons. It goes to the brain, and brain, if it stores in the memory cell, it's stored, and whenever it has been again has to be recalled, it recalls, and when it required to do some activity, it will give the message to that particular target cell. The target cell to the role, right? So consciousness is one of the important factor. Let it be a or this consciousness to the environment happens. Now I'll put a question to you. Maybe you would have studied in 10th standard. So how do the plants respond to the stimuli? How do plants respond to stimuli? Do plants move?
Yes, sir.
Yes. What type of movement is seen in plants? How do they move? No idea. 10th standard you would have learned. Maybe I'm not sure how many of you have studied. Okay. See, how do plants respond to a particular factor? Now I'm talking about all the environmental factors, light, environmental factor of the growth, how it has been growing dependent on light. So light is one of the factor. Water is one of the factor. Temperature is one of the factor. Right now, how do plants will respond? In sense, they have two type of movements. One, we say it is growth dependent. One type of movement is growth dependent. So how do they respond? So light has been kept directly above the plant. So the plant will grow. Maybe the sapling, I'm talking about the sapling. For example, if this is a sapling, this is a sapling which has been present and sunlight is directly above the plant, then this plant will start growing. So there's red I'm indicating for growth. They'll grow towards the light. In case the same plant has been kept, the sapling has been kept and sunlight is somewhere over here, so then this plant will start growing towards the direction of sunlight like this. So this we call it as growth dependent movement. Growth dependent movement, also called as trophism. And when we talk about growth independent movement, so we call it as nasties. You would have come across the plant called touch me not.
Yes.
So those touch me not plant, when you touch, they'll fold their leaves, they'll curl their leaves, right? Or even the sunflower will be opening the leaf when they're facing the sun, or they will be kept closed. So they are not exposed. When sunlight is there, they'll expose, otherwise they'll be closed. So this will be an example for growth independent. Now why I'm talking about this is because plants also responds to stimuli. It's not only the animals, plants also responds to the stimuli, right? But we human beings are considered as a high.
So can you
Yes.
repeat growth independent movement, sir?
Growth independent as we have plants. For example, in the touch me not plant, leaves are present, right? Touch me not, that's why the name touch me not plant. So the leaves which are present like this, let me see, the leaves which are present, they will be closed. They'll
Sir,
call.
Can we also plants that eat insects as a dependent
Insectivorous
movement,
plant.
Yes, sir.
Insectivorous plants. Yeah, that also come under it. Insectivorous Nepenthes. Touch me not plant, a simple example to remember. So the leaves which are in the normal, they are exposed outside. When you touch it, it will get closed. The leaves will close inside. So that is why it is called as nasties. It means that there is no requirement of movement. There is no growth. Means that the plant is not growing. The growing is not showing the movement. It is only the touch, the leaves will fold. There is no growth involved. But whereas in the first case, what I have given here in trophism, growth is involved. How do you see the movement in a plant? By the means of growth. That's why growth dependent and growth independent. Right? So this example is actually, I'm just providing it for even plants or also respond to the external stimuli. Right? And we human beings, we are considered as a high level of consciousness compared to all the other organisms. We have high level of consciousness. Can you tell me why? It is because of
Self-consciousness.
Self-consciousness. It's because of our well-developed system. We have nervous system. Of course, self-consciousness is also there. Nervous system, well-developed nervous system will be able to communicate. That's why I told you, your brain will be communicate, gives the order to the other organs, particularly to the muscles and glands. This time this has to be done, your brain is giving the order. So control center is from the brain. But whereas in plants, there is no nervous system is present. And moreover, in animals also, we have animals, they do contain the nervous system, but they are not to a high level like us. That self-consciousness, what you told us, and I gave the answer, that is not there. So we are the highest one. Okay. So this is a defining characteristic. Self-consciousness is to be present in humans, as I told you, as you told, right? Present in humans, not in the other organisms. Now, what about a coma patient? What about a coma patient?
Not defined, sir.
Not defined. Do
It's
they have consciousness?
No, sir.
Okay. Normally the brain is not functioning when we have seen that cases, right? Most movies you would have watched. The brain is not functioning, but the person is alive. It's not functioning in sense there are two differences you can make. If the brain dead, if it is brain dead, then we say that the person is not able to survive. Oxygen is not reaching, brain cells are not functioning. But whereas in coma patient, the consciousness is there. So it means that with the help of certain basic instruments, so we can make the lungs and the hearts to be functions. We may have that consciousness to doing it. So they are alive. They're being alive. They have some consciousness. Can you understand? But the coordination is not there. They have consciousness, but the coordination is not there. The brain is not giving the information to the organs to do this work. That coordination is not there. Okay. So there's another important characteristic feature when we talk about, so living organisms, they'll undergo a characteristic feature called self-replication. Self-replication. Have you come across this term, replication?
Yes, sir.
What is this?
Copies, Xerox copies.
Very good. It is a copy of its own. That means we are talking about the DNA copying. DNA is called the genetic material. So copy of DNA. So that is what we call it as the process of copying of DNA is called replication. That is one. So self-replication, then evolution. So from some other already existing organisms, from there this has been evolved. But actually there is no exact proof, as according to my point of view. We say that this organism may be evolved. The term itself indicates that this organism may be evolved. We cannot say it is evolved from that, because there is no exact evidence that we are evolved from this, but there's evidences supporting. So we may be from this particular organisms, right? So evolution is also one of the characteristic feature. Evolving living organisms can evolve from the other organisms, right? And interact and respond to the external stimuli. Adaptations, I told you in the beginning itself, adaptation and maintaining of physiological process, for physiological process, homeostasis, we call it as homeostasis. So that is also been important characters of living. So the basic why we say that term living, these are the characteristic features of an organism for saying that that organism is living. Any questions up to this?
Sir.
Hmm.
Sir, for growth dependent movement, you said another term, no? So Trophism, like something you told.
Trophism, right? I'll write it. Trophism. and independent is nasty. Trophism and nasty. So this trophism that is there, it was there in your 10th CBSE book, I guess. That is, trophism is further divided into phototrophism, geotrophism, hydrotrophism, and thigmotrophism. Photo, geo, it is all depend on the external factors. Light, phototrophism, I'm talking about light. Geotrophism is gravity. Hydro is water. Thigmo is touch. We
Yes,
just
sir.
started with introduction. We just started with the introduction of what is living. Now we know all organisms are living because of all these characteristics. What is this diversity of living organisms? So the next part, what you talk about is diversity. Diversity of living organisms or the living world. Now this term diversity, so always we say diversity of living organisms. This has been indicated as biodiversity. So bio is always referring the living organisms, living organisms, right? It's about the total different forms of organisms, total number of organisms present in the earth. So that is what we talk about biodiversity, right? And how these organisms has been classified and why there is a need of classification and why there is a need of studying all these organisms, right? For first question, when I say all the, now if I say, for example, if 1,000 organisms are there, I'm not talking about the total number of organisms, 1,000 organisms are there. I want to study these 1,000 organisms. Why do I need to study these 1,000 organisms? It is because all the organisms, they are interdependent. Now we are dependent on a particular pathogenic organism, maybe a microorganism, for some commercial purpose, right? We depend on animal for some commercial purpose. Human beings, as the previous character says, that we are in the higher conscious level. So we are in the higher level. So we make use of that. So for our need, I need to survive for number of years. So the medical facilities have started. I need to live. I need to escape from this particular disease. Vaccines or antibiotics was discovered. So we are in that level, right? So that's why we are studying about, for our need, we are studying about all the organisms. But so this 1,000 organisms, I cannot study at one time. So it is a huge process. I'm just talking about 1,000 organisms. If you say about 7 to 8 million organisms, how it is possible for studying that? At a time, I cannot study all those things, right? So for that, the classification method has been come forward. So this classification of organism has been put forward under the branch of biology, what is called as taxonomy. So what is this taxonomy? So taxonomy is a branch of science, or you can say branch of biology. Branch of biology deals with nomenclature, then classification. Exactly what we're talking about is classification. So to classify an organism, naming an organism is important. Identifying and naming an organism is important. So nomenclature, classification, organism, that is called as taxonomy. So initially this term taxonomy, this was given by, this term taxonomy was by, don't write the definition here, I'm just talking term. The term is given by, so he was the person initially who has given the term or proposed the term called taxonomy, right? So this taxonomy, as I told you, it includes, first thing is identification. You need to identify this is the organism in this particular place. And second thing is naming the organism. We call it as nomenclature. And then classification of organisms. You're grouping them into certain category. Why you want to group them into certain category? To study their characteristic features. So whether two organisms has got the similar characteristics or they are different from each other. So this key word for classification of organisms is the similarity and differences. So what is key for classification? It is the similarity and difference among organisms. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. People are taking down notes as I'm taking this, either if you write or if you are understanding, right, all the words what I pronounce. Any difficulty in understanding the pronunciation?
No, sir.
No. Okay. ICBN. So this is International Code of Botanical Nomenclature. For naming the organisms. Botanical nomenclature instance for plants. The same thing, we do have one more called ICZN. ICZN is for zoological nomenclature. ICBN is for botanical. ICZN. So this is for zoological nomenclature. International code for, I have not written the international code for zoological nomenclature. Right? So they what is the use of this ICBN? So it means that they have allotted the rules. So to there are certain rules to name an organism. So according to biological nomenclature, we also, in the case of binomial nomenclature, there are certain rules to write or to name a particular organism. So why this a name has been kept? Why this nomenclature has been given? So here, when we talk about nomenclature, the binomial nomenclature has been followed. So this binomial nomenclature has been given by the scientist called Linnaeus. Binomial nomenclature. So Linnaeus is the one to give this term binomial nomenclature. Bi indicates two. Two names are given. Two names are given. One is the specific, that is, sorry, the genus name called as generic. The other one is the specific name, that is the species name. So we call it as generic, epithet, and specific. So this two names has been given to an organism. So why these two names is given? Why don't we give just a name as such? So why these two names are given? This is to avoid confusion all over the world. So, for best example, I may say among ourselves, one may be from Kerala, one may be from North India, one may be from the Tamil Nadu. So we do call the animals in different names, right? When a North Indian used to, okay, let us talk about a cat or a dog. So North Indian call it as a billy, or the dog is called as a kutta. Now, when they come to South India, first time they come here. So they'll call a name where it creates a confusion among the others. So it's simple terms to to stop confusing about the common names. The scientific name has been given. That scientific name is what is called as binomial nomenclature, which contains two names for any species. First name is always the genus name, which starts with a capital letter, and the second name is species name, a small letter, right? So there are certain rules. There are certain rules to write this binomial nomenclature, right? So when one scientist has discovered a name, one scientist has discovered an organism and he has kept the name, and once name is kept, only that name will be followed. So second time when another scientist discovering the same organism and giving some other name, and that name will not, it is not considered. It is the first scientist who has done, that name has been given. Clear? And both the scientific name and both the genus name and the species name, if both the names are same, for example, we come under Homo sapiens, right? Homo is genus name and sapiens is the species name. So if the name is sapiens, if it is given like name sapiens and sapiens, then it is not considered. It is not valid, right? That is particular, it is not valid. I gave the Homo sapiens as an example, but it is actually only for plants. So for example, in plants, if you take any example, so easy example, when we talk Pisum sativum, So this is actually the pea plant, sativum or Mangifera indica. This is a genus name and species name. In case if the name is given as sativum, sativum, if the name is sativum, sativum, if this is the name is given for a plant, then this is not valid. For plants, it is not valid, but it is applicable for animals. So it is applicable for animals. For that, the example is there called Naja Naja. Naja Naja. Rattus Rattus. Another example, if we say Rattus Rattus for rat and cobra. Cobra is plus Naja. So this is applicable for animals. For animals, it is valid. So the rule that if two same name has been given, species name and genus name is same, it is not accepted for plants, it is accepted only for animals. Right? And another characteristic feature, the length of the letter. So it's the length of the generic name, length of generic name. So this name should not be less than 3 letters. Should not be less than 3 letters. So it should be more than 3 letters. Right? That is one of the characteristic feature. So any genus name, when you see any genus name which is given for plants and animals, it will be more than 3 letters. And accordingly, more than 12 letters, that will be in exceptions. Both the genus and species, when you see more than 12 letters, rarely exception can be seen, but more than 12 letters is not valid. It should be within that 3 to 12 letters. 3 to 12 letters is the one. 1 or 2 exception can be seen, but not in all the cases. So it is the letters from 3 to 12. Both species, genus and species name together, it should contain from 3 to 12 letters. That is one specific rule. Right? And genus name is written in genus name. This is written in capital letter. Written in capitals. And species name starts with small. Species name starts with small letter. So this is one more characteristic. This is one more characteristic feature of giving the name for species, binomial nomenclature. Right? And when this name has been written, when they are freehand written or when they are typed, the generic name, that is genus name and the species name, should be underlined separately. So if it has been written in free or in the both should be underlined separately. Or if it is for a printing, it should be italicized. So in italics, it should be written in italics. Right? The name of the scientist, if the scientist name who was given that particular name, genus name and species name, if it has to be written, it has to be after the species name. For example, if the Linnaeus, I'm talking about Linnaeus scientist, Mangifera. So Mangifera indica. So this is the genus name and species name. And the scientist name has to be followed. If the scientist name has been written, it should be in very short form. So it is Lin. Linnaeus has been written as Lin. So this is the method of writing the scientist name after the genus and species name. Right? And the scientist name is neither underlined nor written in italics, but it can be in the Romans. So you cannot underline the scientist name. Only this genus name and the species name should be underlined, not the scientist name. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so these are the number of rules for writing for giving a name to one particular organism. So this comes in the binomial nomenclature. So ICBN is for international code for botanical nomenclature, and ICZN for zoological nomenclature. For example, Now, if the question has been, another code has been given as ICV, what does that V stands for? ICVN. If I give you a term called ICVN, what does this V stands for?
Botanical, sir.
Viral. Virus.
Viral. Virus. So V is for virus, viral nomenclature. International code for viral nomenclature. And if it is for bacteria and botanical, it is the same letter B. So already ICBN is given. This is for botany, that is the plants, botanical, ICBN. So for bacteria, it is named as ICNB. So ICNB is international code for, international code of nomenclature for bacteria. So you first one, you will write it as botanical nomenclature. For this, we talk it as nomenclature for bacteria. Right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So all these rules are for writing the names. And now we'll get into the classification of organisms. Who was the first person to classify the organisms into how many kingdoms he has been classified, and then later on how many kingdoms has been put forward, right? So on what basis the classification has been done? Again, it is about the same thing. The classification has been based on the similarities and differences. So to just begin with that classification, taxonomy classification, we have a term called systematics. There's another term related over here, systematics. This is related to, again, it is proposed by Linnaeus. It is related to the classifications. So if you want to study about particular organisms, so it should be in systematic or organized form, right? So I have, for example, that identification, then I have named it, then I have classified it. So that is what that arrangement, that category arrangement of giving this particular organisms a name and then putting their differences based on the difference into one particular group. So that is what is called systematics. So you can say simply, you can say that is a comparative study. There's a comparative study, or based on the phylogenetic classification, evolution. Based on evolution, we can make the description of or the study the features of an organism. Or you can say even the morphological properties. So all these, when I classify the organisms on morphological, so that is a systematic. When I classify an organism based on a phylogenetic relationship, that is a systematic, right? So systematics is term, again, it is related to the classification of organisms. So in a systemized manner, in a proper, well arranged manner, we are classifying the organisms. It's a branch. And children of, yes, okay. Now almost it is, we are ending the session almost to 8:20, 10 more minutes. So since it was a first class, I'll just stop here. Now this one, whatever we have seen up to this particular part, now you see that as you understand about these concepts, why we say it is a living. I told about a word called metabolism. Now, obviously, this term metabolism is related to a number of other chapters. So I gave an example. Metabolism is synthesis and breakdown. So how an ATP has been synthesized? So you will be relating it to the plant physiology. In plant physiology, you study about the ATP production, how ATP is produced in mitochondria. So if I say how ATP is produced in mitochondria, obviously you have a relation with the cell chapter, cell structure and organelles. When you study about each cell organelle, they are specified for each function. So nucleus is containing the material, genetic material called DNA. So all living organisms are made up of the genetic material DNA. Exception is virus. Virus, they may have either it is DNA or it is RNA. It is not both, either DNA or RNA. So mostly plant viruses will have RNA as the genetic material. Animal viruses, they have DNA as their genetic material. So they are classified based on that. So based on genetic material, they are classified as adenoviruses and retroviruses. So exception of retrovirus in animals, human beings, we have HIV virus. That belongs to a retrovirus family. It's an RNA virus, which causes the disease called AIDS. So why I'm talking about this, when I talk about certain things here, now spoke. So what is this metabolism synthesizing? How this ATP is synthesized? So you have to relate it to the next chapter, overcomes with the other unit. So you know the informations now, you know what are the characters are living. And now when you use term called reproduction, you may also recall about types of sexual reproduction, the types of asexual reproduction, starting from fission. It is binary fission, multiple fission, fragmentation. What is fragmentation? What can be the example? So one by one, you may recall, you may link. Now somehow we are doing the chapter again. Some of these parts will come again. So link it out. Right? The question can be from, they'll you in the first chapter you would have not studied any example. Maybe this two simple examples would have been given. But when you get a question, they take the question from other chapter, related to the other chapter. So in plant kingdom, you will be studying about all the types of algae, red algae, green algae. So in green algae, you may say that it is unicellular, what form exists. From there, you may get an example related to this particular living characteristic, metabolism or the reproduction. Always there is linking. So you should be very careful in studying the examples too. Right? This chapter is not a deal for us. It's just an introduction chapter to know how the organisms has been classified. So we are starting with that. So how the class went, I just want, people should not get bored. Where the topics are also such cases. Few topics will be like that. How the class went, everybody have listened this session completely?
Yes, sir.
Is
Yes,
there
sir.
any interruption in between? Was there an interruption in between? Any, like there was a network problem? No, I guess, right?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay. From your side, do you want me to teach in other language also? Is everybody very clear with this English, or should I want to go with Tamil? Explanation is required in Tamil. Please give your suggestion. If some one or two requires Tamil, I may use the bilingual. So all of you are comfortable with English.
Yes, sir.
Very good. That's nice to hear. So you may ask questions. You may ask your questions from this, whatever we have done. Any questions from your side? No? I can take it as everyone well understood about this. Okay, then I'll put a question. Let us check. I'll put a question. So it is obviously from the source what we use. So which one of the following aspect is an exclusive characteristic of living organisms? Exclusive characteristic of living things or living organisms. So I'll give you the options. You have your, I think, do you are provided with the material?
Yes, sir.
Oh, then it's fine. Then I guess we this question can be discussed. It is not asking the answer. Can be discussed. Now you see the question: which one of the following aspect is an exclusive characteristic of living things? So they have given the options as isolated metabolic reaction, vitro, increase in mass from inside only, perceptions of events happening in the environment, increase in mass accumulated of material both on surface as well as internally. So they have asked exclusive character. How do you take this question? Exclusive character in sense it is the specific character or it is a character which is not included.
A specific character, sir.
Specific characteristic. So which one of the following aspect is an exclusive? If it is a specific characteristic, increase in mass from inside only. So that is the answer given for this. So how do you say that that is the answer for this?
Sir, it cannot be shown by others, no, sir, non-living. It can only be
Yes.
shown.
Very, very good. So non-living organisms, they may grow with means externally. That is a possibility is there. So only living organisms, they'll grow intrinsic. Only the internal growth can be considered. So that is an exclusive character. So what happens here is we may confuse the form. What is the excluded character? We say that this character is excluded. Now reproduction and growth is what? They're excluded, right? They are not considered as a defining character. So we may think in that form. So question understanding is very much important. So when once you understand the question very keenly, then it is easy for us to answer. Okay, then maybe I'll try to put question from just a minute. I'll give some questions. Meanwhile, if you have any questions, you can put forward. Now, what we have seen, the term, the top, what we have seen. We have just started with intro. We do have this taxonomical classification about Linnaeus grouping classification, and we have this hierarchy system of classification. Okay. I may ask a question. An attribute found in plants but not in animals. Attribute found in plants but not in animals. Is it metabolism, sexual reproduction, autotrophy, asexual reproduction?
So is it
Am I
autotrophy?
audible? Can you give me the explanation why it is autotrophy? What does it mean?
Yes, sir, but animals also show autotrophy, sir. Some animals.
Animals, they show autotrophy.
Yes, sir, I guess.
You guess others. You can others also can discuss with us. It's not that one has to answer.
Sir, can you repeat the option, sir?
Metabolism, sexual reproduction, autotrophy, asexual reproduction. If you give an answer, that explanation should be there. Why we are taking this answer? Okay, now who has given the answer as autotrophy? Can you give me the explanation? What do you mean by autotrophy?
Sir, which prepares their own food, sir.
Which prepare their own food. Then you told me that even animals, they can prepare, I guess.
Yes, sir.
Which animals they prepare their own food?
Mammals, sir.
How do you say animals prepare their own food?
Sir, they are indirectly
What?
dependent on plants only, sir.
That is indirectly. We are indirectly dependent. We are not directly preparing our food. All plants prepare their own food. It means they contain their pigment. So they contain their pigment, chlorophyll, they prepare their own food. Few other organisms like blue-green algae or cyanobacteria, it's also called cyanobacteria, they can prepare their own food since they contain chlorophyll pigment. And few protista also can prepare their own food. So for protista, dinoflagellates which comes in chrysophytes. So you'll be studying that in next chapter in biological classification. They can also prepare their own food. But the question here, they have asked about only the difference between the plants and animals. So metabolism occurs in both, in plants and animals it occurs. Sexual reproduction also occurs in plants and animals. Asexual is also happening in plants and animals. But can you give me an example of asexual reproduction in animals?
Sir, fission, sir.
Fission, in which organism it takes place?
Amoeba.
Amoeba is an amoeba, they come under the separate group, Protista.
No,
They
sir,
come
no.
under the kingdom Protista.
Yeah, sir.
Any other?
Tapeworm.
Earthworm.
Tapeworm, sir.
Tapeworm.
So they are parasites, no, sir?
Okay. Tapeworm is their parasites. They do can produce their gametes. So we have asexual or sexual can be taking place in these organisms. So if best example, if you want to say, it is about Hydra. In coelant traits, Hydra budding. You may remember that. Hydra, they are coming as coelant traits.
Yes, sir.
Hydra. So right. So asexual reproduction takes place. So autotrophy is the answer for it.
So planaria also will come, sir. True regeneration it undergoes.
Yeah, planaria, regeneration, planaria.
It is also animal, right, sir?
Planaria is also an animal.
Okay, sir.
We'll study about that, detail. We have this animal kingdom. Animal kingdom, we'll study about all the kingdoms and with the examples of it. Okay. Now, this question has not been studied for us. Okay, consider these two statements. Cellular organization of the body is of life forms. The first statement, cellular organization of the body is a defining feature of life forms. Second statement is, metabolic reactions cannot be demonstrated outside the body in cell-free systems. Metabolic reactions cannot be demonstrated outside the body in cell-free systems. So whether both 1 and 2 are true, and 2 explains the first one, this is a reasoning question, assessment reasoning question. So whether second statement is explaining the first one, or when both 1 and 2 are true but does not explain, second one is does not explaining the first one. Third option is first statement is true, second statement is false, and fourth option is both the statements are false. I repeat the statement. Cellular organization of the body is the defining feature of life forms. Metabolic reactions cannot be demonstrated outside the body in cell-free systems.
So what is the third option?
First option is, statement 1 and 2 are true, and statement 2 explains the first statement. Second statement is explaining the first statement. Option 2 is both are true, but second statement is not explaining the first statement. Third option is statement 1 is true and 2 is false. Fourth option is both are false. Both the statements are false.
It is C, sir. C.
C.
Yeah.
I guess only one is answering. All the others, same voice I can recognize. Why it is C?
Sir, B, metabolic activities can be taken out in vitro.
That's all. It can be demonstrated. That's why it is called as in vitro. We have just seen about that. In vitro can be done. Outside the body, reactions can be showed. Okay, so option C will be the right one. Statement 1 is correct and 2 is false. Okay, so I guess it's fine. We'll stop with this. Possibly next class onwards, as we complete the topic, we'll go with number of question discussion also, maybe around 10 to 15 minutes. We'll have discussion of the questions of that day's topic. We'll do the same. Is this fine for you?
Yes, sir.
Last 10 minutes, we'll go with few questions discussion. Others, I need the response from others too. It's not that one is in the class. The whole class has to answer. You don't respond. Everyone are comfortable with the class?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's nice.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Maybe it takes some time to recognize you. Maybe I have not asked you to on your video to know who are the people. I can see the names: Arita, Rajeshwari, Monavarshini, Shrutilaya, Sina. It's Sina or Sina?
Sena, sir.
Sina. Okay. Varshni and Yogeswaran. Hemalata. Okay, I've just gone through the names. Probably in upcoming classes, I do remember the names to ask questions. I may put questions in between. Next class, I may ask you questions suddenly. Okay, thank you. Thank you, children. And probably we meet in the next class. Have a nice day.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.